everyone, and welcome back to A+ Life, where teens and teachers learn to live lives that feel like an A+. So as you can see, I have had a bit of a change of setting since my last video, and that is because now that I'm back at college after winter break, I am in my dorm. And as you can see, I am so excited to be back to dorm life. So this month's theme, like we talked about last week, is relationships. And so last week we focused on toxic relationships, but today we're going to switch gears and talk about a topic that I know really well. And that topic is the benefits of being single. Hashtag forever alone. And so, in case you didn't notice, yesterday happened to be Valentine's Day. And that means if you're in a relationship, this month has probably been really exciting for you. You get to spend time with the one who you love, probably do something really special and fun, and just cherish the bond that you've created with this amazing person. And that is awesome. But for some of us, February isn't so amazing. Even though Valentine's Day should be about the happiness and joy of love, society has conditioned us to believe that if we aren't in a relationship, something must be wrong with us. Just think for a second about characters in TV and books and movies. Oftentimes, if a character is single, they're made out to be a very weak and lost character. For example, in the Twilight Saga New Moon, when Bella and Edward break up, Bella becomes so depressed that the book literally skips over about 6 months of her life. The devastation of the breakup is so encompassing for Bella that she's in almost a trance-like state. Or in The Notebook, when Noah and Allie break up, Noah becomes obsessed with building her this house, and he writes her 365 letters and really just loses himself completely. Now, the alternative to this weak single character is somebody who's very villainous. So if a character isn't in a relationship, they might turn out to be a bad person. An example of this is found in the musical Sweeney Todd, where Sweeney tries to avenge the death of his wife by killing dozens of people throughout the city of London. Or, by the end of the High School Musical series, Sharpay is the only one who is not in a relationship, and much of her time on screen is spent trying to take down Gabriella to win the affections of Troy. Now, while I obviously don't support the actions of some of these characters, I do think that these examples show why teens may associate being single with being wrong or invalid. And during Valentine's season, when the idea of being in love is so publicized, that invalidation becomes unignorable. But I think what teens really don't understand about relationships is that it's impossible to have healthy, fulfilling love with somebody else before we learn to love ourselves. Now, while I believe that teens are capable of having healthy, wonderful relationships, I also think that for a lot of teens, the desire for love comes from a place of insecurity. We want someone to look past the parts of ourselves that we don't like and love us anyway. We seek validation through love. And it's great when we can find somebody like that. But what many teens don't realize is that just because someone is there to love us, it doesn't mean that those insecurities go away. And for all of the adults watching this, I want to say that this is why teenage love can be so devastating. Because when we trust somebody to love us like we're perfect, our expectations will never be met. Because relationships aren't perfect. So every time a disagreement or a breakup occurs, an insecure teen starts thinking that it's their fault. And all of those insecurities that were covered up by that initial magic of the relationship come back twice as strongly. So when we talk to teens about being single, we're not actually talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about relationships with our self-esteem. And so when we talk about the benefits of being single, I think the biggest one we need to address is that when we are dating somebody, we spend a ton of time learning about how awesome that person is. But when we're single, we get to discover greatness within ourselves. And I think a wonderful example of this is found in the book Eat, Pray, Love, which is written by the amazing Liz Gilbert. So after 7 years of marriage, Liz Gilbert discovered that she felt no connection to her husband. She went through a very long and tumultuous divorce process and was left devastated and alone. but on a whim, she decided to take a year off from normal life and do what she loved, which was travel the world. And along the way, Liz had amazing experiences abroad, she made lifelong friends, she grew in her faith, and she gained control over insecurities that had ruled her teenage and adult years. And then she wrote a best-selling book about it. And so Liz's story is an awesome example of how relationships that are grounded in insecurities don't create lifetime bonds. And more importantly, Liz's story teaches us that when we take time to focus on ourselves, we figure out who we truly are. And that is the benefit of being single. When you're not growing with somebody else, you get to grow with yourself. So now, just like last week, I'm going to give you some A+ tips about how you and your teen can find that bright side of the single life. Number 1 is for teens. Don't cover up your insecurities with a significant other. Even though relationships can look glamorous and perfect from the outside, they are nothing without respect for each partner and respect for ourselves. So instead of ignoring your insecurities, confront them. Because whatever you're insecure about will not be solved by somebody else's actions. The only way to solve a you problem is to start with you. And another thing, side note, stop watching movies with weak single characters. Instead, I would recommend something much more empowering, like Joy, or The Blind Side, or even Zero Dark 30. Because those films show that we can start companies, become sports heroes, or even take down terrorists without the help of a significant other. Just saying. Number 2 is for adults. Encourage your teen to use their singleness to their advantage. Whether your teen is just coming off of a breakup or has been single their entire life, encourage them to do things that make them feel good and empower them. Let them go to Comic-Con, teach them to cook, start a YouTube channel, whatever your teen wants to do, ask them what that thing is and then help them do that. Because the more a teen can see their own individual power to do something great, the less they are going to depend on relationships for happiness. Number 3 is for everyone, adults, teens, old people, young people, whatever you are. Rewrite the dialogue of Valentine's Day. Instead of only focusing on romantic relationships, let's start promoting self-love and empowerment and friendship each February. Let's stop pressuring people to find love in outside sources and start finding the beauty within ourselves. And it's only February 15th, so we have a whole 364 days to start a movement before the next Valentine's Day. Let's make it happen, Captain. So that's all we have time for today, but join us again next week where we'll start discussing a different type of relationship, which is friendship. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have an A+ day.